In a world that constantly demands openness, where people are encouraged to share their truth and put everything on display, privacy often gets undervalued. But what many fail to realize is that privacy is not secrecy, it is power. The more people know about your life, your plans, your emotions, and your past, the more influence they have over you, whether intentionally or not. When you keep certain aspects of your life private, you maintain control over your narrative. You don't give others the ability to predict your moves, anticipate your decisions, or exploit your weaknesses. Think of your personal information like currency. The more you give away, the less you have. People might use what you share to manipulate situations, compete with you, or even undermine your success without you realizing it. Privacy creates an invisible shield around your energy, your goals, and your peace of mind. It keeps your motivations and emotions protected from outside noise, opinions, and interference. When you don't reveal your next step, people can't block it. When you don't reveal your insecurities, people can't poke at them. Privacy is the art of keeping your intentions and your internal life guarded, not because you're hiding something, but because not everything needs to be explained or exposed. The strongest individuals are often not the loudest, but the most disciplined in what they reveal. They understand that power doesn't always come from being seen, but from being unknown, from having control over what others perceive and what they never get to see. Maintaining privacy is not a weakness or a lack of openness. It is a deliberate choice to protect what matters most. In today's hyper-connected world, oversharing has become normalized, even expected. We're encouraged to post every detail of our lives online, to speak openly about our thoughts, our past, our relationships, and our challenges. But what's often overlooked is that every word you share becomes a piece of yourself that others can use for better or for worse. When you overshare, you expose parts of yourself that are meant to be protected. You reveal not just facts, but emotions, fears, patterns, and insecurities, often to people who may not have your best interests at heart. What you see as honesty, others might see as opportunity to judge you, manipulate you, or even compete with you more effectively. The more you talk, the more people know. And the more they know, the easier it becomes to predict you, analyze you, and influence you. Vulnerability is not the same as openness without boundaries. Healthy vulnerability is about sharing wisely and selectively with people who've earned your trust. Oversharing, on the other hand, is giving too much of yourself too quickly, often in environments or to people who haven't proven themselves worthy of your truth. It can stem from a desire for validation, a fear of being misunderstood, or even a lack of self-awareness. But whatever the cause, the effect is the same. You make yourself emotionally exposed and potentially exploited. Even in casual conversations, people remember what you say. They connect the dots over time. They observe your patterns, your moods, your inconsistencies. And while some may empathize, others will weaponize that knowledge intentionally or unintentionally. Oversharing can turn into self-sabotage, allowing others to develop a version of you based on incomplete or exaggerated stories. It invites assumptions and gossip, and it often leads to regrets when the wrong person knows too much. Ultimately, being mindful of what you share and with whom is a form of emotional intelligence. It's not about being secretive or cold. It's about having boundaries. It's about understanding that your personal experiences, dreams, and pain are not for public consumption. They are valuable, and value demands protection. We live in a culture that often glamorizes openness and vulnerability. We're told to be real, be transparent, and tell your story. While there's truth in the idea that honesty can build connections, there's a deeper truth many forget. Not everyone has earned the right to know you deeply. There's a difference between being kind to people and letting them into your inner world. Not everyone you meet, not every colleague, friend, family member, or acquaintance is emotionally equipped to understand you, support you, or handle the truth of who you are. Some will judge you from a distance. Others will exploit what they know, and many will simply misunderstand your intentions. That misunderstanding can lead to gossip, assumptions, and even passive hostility. This is why access to your mind, your emotions, your story, and your private thoughts must be a privilege, not a default. When you allow too many people into your private life, you dilute the value of your boundaries. You begin to sacrifice your emotional security for temporary connection or validation. But the truth is, the people who genuinely care about you don't need every detail to respect or support you. And the ones who demand too much too soon often have motives rooted in curiosity, not care. Giving someone access to your life means giving them power, not always in the dramatic sense, but in subtle, lasting ways. They learn how you think, what you fear, what triggers you, and what matters most to you. In the right hands, this knowledge becomes protection. In the wrong hands, it becomes manipulation. You may think someone is just listening, but in reality, they could be calculating, shaping their behavior around what you've shared, not to uplift you, but to manage how close they need to be, how much they can gain, or how far they can push you. Even people with good intentions can mishandle your truth. They may overshare your story with others, minimize your struggles, or offer advice without understanding your context. Not every act of listening is rooted in empathy. Some people listen only to feed their own sense of importance or to feel superior, or simply because they're addicted to knowing things about others. But your life is not entertainment. Your vulnerability is not material for casual discussion. Access should be based on trust, consistency, and mutual respect, not just proximity or history. Some people are close to you in title. They may be family, old friends, or longtime coworkers, but that doesn't mean they've earned your vulnerability. Others may be charming, attentive, or persuasive in the short term, but that doesn't mean they have the emotional maturity to hold your trust over time. It's not about being cold, secretive, or emotionally unavailable. It's about recognizing that your peace, your progress, and your personal journey deserve protection. You get to choose who walks with you, who watches from a distance, and who stays outside the gate entirely. This is not selfishness, it's wisdom. When you manage access carefully, you protect your emotional energy from being drained, your identity from being misinterpreted, and your life from being influenced by those who don't truly understand or value you. Letting people in should be a decision, not a reaction. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't need to justify your boundaries, and you certainly don't have to feel guilty for choosing to keep certain things to yourself. In a world obsessed with visibility, there's something powerful, even magnetic, about those who don't reveal everything. People who carry an air of mystery tend to command more attention, more curiosity, and often more respect. When you maintain a sense of mystery, you allow others to focus on your presence, your actions, and your results, not your explanations or personal disclosures. Mystery isn't about playing games or being intentionally deceptive. It's about choosing what to reveal and what to hold back, not out of fear or arrogance, but out of self-respect and awareness. When you don't constantly explain yourself, justify your choices, or narrate every chapter of your life, people are left to judge you based on your behavior, your integrity, and your outcomes. That form of influence is far more lasting and dignified than any story you could tell. Too often, people seek validation by over-explaining, trying to be understood by everyone, trying to clarify every move they make. But in doing so, they hand over too much of themselves. They give away their depth, their process, and even their emotional leverage. Once everyone knows everything about you, your motivations, your insecurities, your patterns, they stop seeing you as someone to be understood and start seeing you as someone to be figured out, managed, or even controlled. But when you retain a sense of mystery, you create boundaries that demand respect without saying a word. People don't assume they're entitled to your inner world. They observe more carefully. They speak with more intention. They don't take your silence as weakness. They take it as strength. They know they're not entitled to your every thought or detail, and so when you do speak, they listen. When you do open up, it matters. Mystery also protects your mental and emotional freedom. When people don't know exactly how you think or feel about everything, they can't easily predict or manipulate you. They can't box you in, label you, or use your personality against you. You become harder to read, and in a world where many people look for control, whether socially, emotionally, or even professionally, being unreadable becomes a powerful form of resistance. People often chase what they don't fully understand. It's human nature to be intrigued by what's just out of reach. When you keep something to yourself, your long-term goals, your emotional landscape, your private beliefs, you increase your perceived value. You become more than just what you say, you become what people sense, imagine, and wonder about. This is the difference between surface level attention and lasting impression. In personal relationships, mystery also serves a protective role. When you don't immediately lay bare every story, every mistake, every intention, you give people the time to earn your trust, to prove their consistency, and to meet you with depth, not just curiosity. You avoid premature emotional entanglements and give yourself the space to observe people, to learn who truly values you for who you are, not just for what they can find out about you. Moreover, in professional or social environments, the mysterious person often holds more power. Why? Because when you speak less, people assume more. They wonder about your background, your strategy, your next move. You leave room for interpretation, and in doing so, you subtly shift the dynamic. Instead of chasing validation, you make others seek your insight, your perspective, or your approval. That kind of influence can't be faked. It comes only when you're comfortable not revealing too much. Mystery isn't about withholding love, connection, or vulnerability. It's about practicing self-respect through selectiveness. It's about understanding that your inner world is sacred, not a stage for public consumption. Your dreams are sacred. They are the visions that lie deep inside you, hopes you've nurtured quietly, sometimes for years, perhaps even since childhood. And your weaknesses, though often seen in a negative light, are just as personal. They are the raw, unpolished parts of your humanity, the struggles, the fears, the habits you're still trying to overcome. Both your dreams and your weaknesses deserve protection, not exposure. When you talk too freely about your dreams, especially in their early stages, you expose them to energies and opinions that can stifle their growth. Dreams are fragile when they're young. They need room to develop without judgment, space to expand without interference. Every time you share your deepest ambitions with someone who doesn't understand your vision, lacks your passion, or harbors envy, even subtly, you risk weakening your own momentum. Not everyone will cheer you on. Some will question your goals, poke holes in your ideas, or offer backhanded support that leaves you doubting yourself. There is something quietly powerful about working in silence. When you keep your goals to yourself, you keep the focus on the work, not the approval. You don't invite premature criticism. You don't feel the need to perform or explain. You simply move one step at a time on your own terms. And then when the results finally show, they speak louder than any declaration ever could. People are forced to respect the outcome, even if they never believed in the process. On the other hand, your weaknesses, if exposed carelessly, can become weapons in the wrong hands. Vulnerability, when shared with the right people, builds connection. But when shared too widely or with the wrong audience, it can invite manipulation, ridicule, or exploitation. Some people don't want to support your growth. They want to feel superior to you. The moment they know what you struggle with, they may use it to push your buttons, test your limits, or diminish your confidence. You must understand that self-awareness and self-protection go hand in hand. It's important to acknowledge your weaknesses to yourself and in safe, trusted environments. But that doesn't mean broadcasting your struggles to those who haven't earned your trust. You are not obligated to be emotionally open to everyone. In fact, constant openness can lead to emotional exhaustion, disappointment, and unnecessary conflict. There's also a psychological impact to sharing your weaknesses too freely. You begin to identify with them. The more you talk about what you can't do, what you fear, or what you failed at, the more those things begin to define you in your own mind. You replay them, you explain them, and you reinforce their presence in your life. But when you learn to work on your weaknesses privately, without needing external validation or pity, you give yourself the space to grow in strength, not in self-doubt. The same is true for your healing. When you're working through pain, whether it's trauma, heartbreak, disappointment, or failure, it is a deeply personal process. If you share that process too openly, too early, you risk being misunderstood. Worse, you might open emotional wounds before they've had a chance to scar over. Healing, like dreaming, requires a safe, protected space. Guarding your dreams and weaknesses is not about isolation. It's about preservation. It's about knowing that not everything needs to be discussed, defended, or displayed. You are allowed to keep parts of yourself tucked away from the noise of the world until you're strong enough to bring them forward without fear. Every word you speak, every detail you reveal about your life is a choice. It may feel small in the moment, an innocent comment here, a bit of your story there, but over time, these choices shape how others perceive you, treat you, and respond to you. That's why it's essential to be intentional. Not everyone deserves the same level of access to your thoughts, your feelings, or your life experiences. One of the greatest mistakes people make in relationships, both personal and professional, is assuming that proximity equals trust just because someone is close to you. A co-worker, a classmate, a family member, even a longtime friend, doesn't automatically mean they have earned the right to your private truths. Trust is not built on time alone. It's built on consistency, emotional safety, mutual respect, and the ability to protect what you share. Without those elements, disclosure becomes a gamble. Too many people speak as if everyone listening is rooting for them, but the reality is more complex. Some people listen out of genuine care. Others listen out of curiosity. A few listen with quiet competitiveness. And then there are those who listen only to gather information, not to support you, but to discuss you later in rooms you'll never enter. This is why it's dangerous to treat all listeners equally. Sharing is not always a sign of connection. Sometimes it's a misplaced expression of vulnerability. When you share everything with everyone, you flatten the boundary between you and the world. You lose the ability to protect your emotional landscape, your ambitions, and your evolving thoughts, and worse, you allow people who haven't earned your trust to shape opinions about you, often based on pieces of information they don't fully understand or respect. Not everyone will interpret your truth the way you intend. Misunderstanding is common, and misrepresentation is even more so. There's also a psychological toll to indiscriminate sharing. You may feel obligated to keep others updated on your life, especially if you've made a habit of being overly transparent. But over time, this creates internal pressure, a feeling that you're always on display, always explaining, always defending your choices. That pressure is exhausting, and it pulls you away from the quiet clarity that comes with selective communication. Choosing what to share isn't about hiding who you are. It's about protecting your peace. You can still be honest without being exposed. You can be sincere without being stripped bare. The key is discernment, the ability to evaluate your audience, the timing, and your own emotional readiness before sharing anything of significance. If someone has proven themselves inconsistent, gossipy, careless, or indifferent to your well-being. They are not a safe space for your truth, and it is not your job to force them to become one. On the other hand, when you do find people who are trustworthy, those rare individuals who listen without judgment, respond with empathy, and hold your words with care, that's when sharing becomes meaningful. In such relationships, communication is not a risk, but a reward. But these people are the exception, not the rule. Until you know who they are, it's wise to move carefully, to share gradually, and to let trust be something that's earned, not assumed. There's also a strategic dimension to discretion. When you hold back, you give yourself time to think, to process, and to protect your intentions from being diluted by outside noise. The more people know, the more they feel entitled to influence your path. But when you reveal less, you retain control, not just over your image, but over your direction, your decisions, and your emotional energy. Ultimately, choosing what to share and with whom is an act of maturity. It means you've learned to measure your words, to recognize the value of your inner world, and to refuse the idea that visibility equals worth. You become the curator of your life's narrative, not just a broadcaster of it. You speak with purpose, not pressure. And in doing so, you reclaim a powerful sense of freedom, the freedom to be known only as deeply as you choose. In a world that often rewards loudness, loud opinions, loud personalities, loud performances, silence is frequently misunderstood. It's mistaken for weakness, passivity, or even a lack of intelligence. But silence, when used with intention, is one of the most powerful tools a person can possess. Strategic silence isn't about withholding for the sake of mystery alone. It's about knowing when to speak and, more importantly, when not to. There's immense wisdom in knowing that not every thought needs to be voiced, not every opinion needs to be shared, and not every situation deserves your reaction. Speaking is easy. Everyone has something to say. But holding your tongue when provoked, remaining calm when chaos erupts around you, and choosing observation over immediate participation. These are skills that require discipline, emotional intelligence, and self-control. Silence allows you to assess. It gives you the breathing space to read the room, to watch people reveal their intentions, to process before responding. While others rush to speak, defend, or justify, the silent individual listens, calculates, and decides what's worth responding to. This creates a sense of calm authority. People begin to notice that you don't react to everything, that you're selective with your words, and that makes them pay closer attention when you do decide to speak. More than that, silence protects you. In arguments, it stops you from saying things you can't take back. In confrontation, it prevents others from twisting your words. In emotional moments, it gives you time to think before you act. Silence keeps you from being predictable. And in any kind of power dynamic, whether in a relationship, a workplace, or a negotiation, unpredictability is an asset. It also preserves your energy. The more you speak, the more you invite others into your mental and emotional space. Sometimes just explaining yourself over and over becomes exhausting, especially when the people you're explaining to aren't listening to understand, but rather to challenge or criticize. Silence spares you from these draining exchanges. It creates a buffer, a kind of protective shield between your inner world and the external noise that constantly demands access to it. There's also a dignity in silence. It shows that you don't need constant validation. You don't feel the urge to prove yourself to everyone. You don't react just because someone expects you to. In fact, strategic silence often makes others more uncomfortable than any words ever could. It forces them to sit with their own behavior, their own assumptions, and sometimes their own guilt. It shifts the power dynamic in your favor without you lifting a finger. And importantly, silence gives room for reflection and growth. When you're constantly talking, explaining, or sharing, you rarely have time to listen to others, yes, but also to yourself. True insight comes in the quiet. It comes in the moments when you're not performing for the world, but instead turning inward, learning, and refining your sense of self. It's in those silent spaces that clarity emerges about who you are, what you want, and what deserves your attention. Strategic silence doesn't mean you never speak up. It means you reserve your voice for when it matters most. It means you understand the weight of your words and use them with care. It means you don't let noise dictate your rhythm. You choose your moments, and in doing so, you maintain control over yourself, your space, and your message.